Hi everyone, well welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to just continue on from the solar light that we just posted. That's the one with the 120 twinkle lights in it. I kept the same form that we used for it, and we're going to build this one here. We're going to build, it's going to be much more complicated. If you're a beginner, you may want to look at the other two leaded glass solar lights first, because they're much easier to build than this one. So for this one here, it's 6 inches wide, just like the other one. It's going to be 8.5 or 9 inches long. And we're going to use the U-came lead around the outside edge. We're going to use the same 120 light bundle of lights for it. This is our solar panel here. This will be the one we're going to put in the top of it. This is like on the other one, it has an on-off switch, which turns it on. It has a mode switch. The mode switch is the one that will select whether you want it to blink or to dim up and down, or just to be 50%, whatever you want to do. I normally, for demonstration, just leave it on solid all the time, but you can play with them and see where they go from there. So it goes out in the sun. It charges during the day. At night, it has a photocell in it, and it comes on at dusk, and it'll burn mostly all night long. So it's a pretty nice little unit. This one here is from Amazon. You can get them from all kinds of different stores, but the bundle has 120 lights in it, and we'll just stuff them down inside of it after we get it made. The pattern we're going to do is this one right here. We're going to make this a little different. Normally, what we're going to do this with what they call copper foil, because it has so many little tiny pieces in here. If you do this with lead, you'll hide a lot of this little detail in here. So basically, it's a modern flower with some leaves in it. Everything you see that's clear back here is going to be done in glue chip. Glue chip, if you're familiar with that glass, has a texture on it. It looks like this. You notice that I've got lines marked on it that shows the grain or the direction going up and down. I like to mark them so that they all will be going up and down. Sometimes if you turn it sideways, you don't notice it until you hang it up, and then you can see right away that the grain's going differently. This particular one doesn't show it really bad, but might as well mark it while we've got a chance. So we'll run these all up and down. The flowers themselves, we're going to just mix the colors all up on the 3 panels, because this will be a 3-panel one, just like we did before. And what I did with this is I took a pattern book that I have, and right out of the middle of a bigger pattern, I just stuck this on my copier and made a copy of it. And then I took and reworked the areas that I want to work with. And so since I did it on my copier, I also went ahead and made my pattern on a copier. And this is just on a manila folder. We'll cut this out with a pair of shears that will cut out the, give a little bit of room for the heart on it. And what we're going to do, we're going to start on the outside edges. We'll put across the top here, we'll put our header on here. I already cut some. Here's what they're going to look like. They'll fit right in here. The U-came will come down and go around the edges of them. Like on the other videos, if you watch them, I've cut a notch out of here for our hanger to fit in here. And I'll show you real quick how we're going to make that hanger. It's made out of a cotter pin. We talked about this on the other 2 videos, so hopefully you've had a chance to look at those. These are 3/32 by 1.5 inch cotter pins. They're steel with zinc plating on them. And to make your hanger, we're just going to take a pair of pliers. See if I can put this in here so we can see it real well. Take your pliers and you hold it right here. And I have a small piece of tubing, it has a 3/32 hole across the back of it. You just insert it into the leg, and you just take and you pull it out to 90 degrees. And it looks like that. And that's going to sit, when we put our glass in here, that's going to sit right here in where I've made this notch. So that way we'll have, the notch will make this glass stay straight when we put it up against our U-came across here. If you don't do that, your job will start out a little bit crooked, and then it gets worse as you go on. So we'll want to do that right from the get-go. Let's do a couple more of these real quick, and just so you get the hang of this. whatever you do, when you're buying these cotter pins, don't buy stainless steel ones because you'll never get them bent. So just slide it in, pull it up 90 degrees, set it aside. I've been doing these like this for about 20 years. I started doing these when we lived out in Arizona. There was a lot of wind out there, and I was always afraid that if I just soldered a ring or something on the edge of the glass, that it might come flying off in the wind. So I've never had one of these fail yet. Basically because the U-came goes across the top of it here, and goes down the side, and then we're going to solder around it. Because these are longer than our header glass, which sticks down here a little bit here, we're going to trim this off about 1/4 of an inch because we don't want it sticking down below because it'll interfere with the rest of our glass. So just take a pair of long nose pliers, run it in here about 1/4 of an inch in, and take and trim off the long leg on it. So that way we don't have a problem with interfering with our glass. Okay, so I pre-cut the lead for this. These are our down pieces right here. They're U-came. We are familiar with this. We've talked about this in the other 2 videos. This is the U-shape. This is a 7/32 crown across the top here. I like that one. It's not too big, but it's not too small to work with, and it gives you some room to work with as far as cutting goes. If you have one that's a little bit off or something, this helps hide a little bit of it. The top piece that goes on here again, 7/32 across the crown. And you'll notice it's cut on a 45 on both sides, and it has a notch in it right here. The notch is where our hanger is going to go. See if you can see that. There's a notch right there. So we're going to put this in here like this. Set this in here. Going to take this, and we're going to take one of our cotter pins that we just bent. We're going to set it in here just like that. Going to set it right in here. Bring that down, and we're going to use a stick pin right here. We're using a homosoit board to build on, so the stick pins work good. You probably have watched other videos. They're using horseshoe nails and all kinds of different things to hold their pieces together. The stick pins work nice, and they're easy to work with. After we get these pinned down, we're going to take our header glass, and we're going to insert it here in the end here. And we're going to slide it down here, move our pin back out, move these back out the end. And it's going to slide all the way down here to the end here. Now our cotter pin is back underneath here, so it's wanted to interfere there, so you have to kind of push that away sometimes. So remember, it's going down the side edge. From here now, we're going to run a piece of H-came. You're familiar with that. This is the H-came right here, makes the letter H. We're going to take our lead shears, and we're going to cut a straight edge on it. There's a better look at it. Okay. This again is 7/32 across the top here, and has about a 1/16 of an inch channel on each side with a 32nd of an inch in the middle. We're going to put that right across here. I'm going to just take a pin here, and we're going to mark where we want to cut that. And when you're building this, try to keep them nice and tight as we go along here. Okay, so that's where we're going to put that right now. The pattern we're going to put, it's going to go right in here. So what we're going to do now, we're going to pull this piece out real quick, and we're going to take our pattern, which is this one right here, which we've kind of colored up a little bit. And we're going to pull this all out of here again real quick, because I want to show you where we're going to put the pattern. The pattern is going to go right here. This is the line that's going to go here. And to get the pattern stuck down, I'm just going to take a glue stick. I'm going to take and put it in here, because if you remember, this is the same form that we use for the other one. That's why I'm just going to glue this pattern back over this same area. I could have broke it apart and showed you how to make another form, but hopefully you've watched the other video and you're familiar with how we're going to make that, how we made the form. So we're going to take our pattern here, we're going to set it right on this line right there. I'll put it right here. I'm going to push that down. So that's going to give us our pattern that we're going to build on right there. Now we'll take and we'll put these back in here real quick. Probably should have done that first, but I wanted to let you see what because we won't know where to put that pattern until we get this header in here, because the header and the piece of lead cane will take up a certain amount of space right there. All right. Here again, this one here wants that leg of that cotter pin wants to hold that back. Okay, now we're back where we want to go. Get this all pushed out. Hopefully you have had a chance to look at my other two videos. They're both primarily for beginners. They're called leaded glass solar lights for beginners, or solar lanterns for beginners. You might want to take a look at those, because they're much easier than this. This is going to be a little bit trickier to work with. And also we're marrying a leaded glass with copper foil. A lot of people say don't do that. I don't know why they say that, because they're basically are going to be the same when you get done with them. So anyway, that's what we're going to do. We're going to have the green leaves in here, and then we're going to make the flowers, like I said, all different colors. So when we come back, I'm going to take this pattern here. I'm going to cut it all apart. There's 25 pieces total in here. So we'll take our shears and we'll cut this apart here, and then we'll start. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lay down all the glue chip first down in here, and after it's down, then we'll take and we'll cut our colored glass, and we'll start to fill these in, because when we get down to some of these little tiny ones here, these are quite small, and you'll see why it's better if you start from the perimeter and then work towards the center here. Also, you notice we have a couple breaks here and one over here. They're right here. The reason for that is that this is going to create an inside radius cut. And to go from here all the way around to here, it's doable, but it's pretty difficult. And so we don't want to make this too hard. So we're going to break it right here. And the same way with this one, if we were to leave this all together, you'd have to make an inner cut here all the way around to here. And your chances of breaking that are quite high. I've done cuts like that before, but for this project, let's make it a little bit simpler. We can just run a piece off right here. Okay, so we'll be back on the next little video clip, and we'll have a bunch of pattern pieces here, and we'll get ready to cut some pattern pieces. All right, we're back. As you can see, we have a whole bunch of little pieces now. So I cut the pattern all apart, and when you're cutting the pattern apart, keep in mind as you add either copper foil or came to a project that it starts to grow. So this is a pair of pattern shears right here. And when you cut your pattern with this, it leaves a little bit of a heart right here. It cuts that out. And when that'll leave us more space. So when we go to put this back together, it'll leave us some area here for our, in this case, our copper foil will be one on each side of the glass. So if you don't use the shears, each piece you add to that will start to grow, and your project will get too big. And since we're building this inside of a form, we have to be careful that we don't let it grow too much, because there's no place where it to go. So anyway, on the next video when we come back, we'll take one of these pieces here, and like I said, we're going to do all the glue chip first around the perimeter. We'll take one of these pieces and we'll show you how we're going to cut the glass. If you're going to attempt this particular project, you probably already have done some leaded glass things. So I'm going to kind of skip over a lot of this, but if you're a first-time beginner, I really think you should probably watch some of the first two videos, because they're much simpler than this one. So anyway, we'll be back, and I moved my cutting board over here close. Hopefully I can show you how to cut one of these pieces out of here. So we'll be back in a minute. All right, we're back. So we're going to get ready to cut some glass. Because we're doing this with copper foil, and we need to cut the glass on the smooth side. This is the glue chip we're going to use right here. So you need to turn your glass over. Since you're turning your glass over, that means that your pattern, which is this one right here, it has to be turned over also. Otherwise, when you cut it, it'll come out backwards. So you don't want that to happen. So to get the pattern down onto the glass, there's a number of ways to do it. One, you can just use a glue stick. If you're not going to do a lot of grinding on it, the glue stick works well. If you're going to maybe do a lot of grinding on it, you can use a pattern tape. And if you're not familiar with this, it's just a two-sided tape. You peel it off. It has a sticky side here. When you stick it down on the pattern, you take it and you cut it in a small piece, and you take the back side off of it, and it adheres to it. But for our project, we're just going to take our pattern piece here, and we're going to stick it down. Just take a piece of paper here so we don't get everything all messed up here. We're just going to take it like this. We're going to take and put some glue stick on it. Now, because this has this inner circle in here, and we're going to have a kind of a small leg right here. Show you what we're going to do with that. We're going to take this and we're going to set it right in here like this. Take and glue that down. It didn't get that glued very good there. Okay. So now, the cutting of the glass is one of those things where everybody has a little different idea how to do it. I'm going to use an oil-fed cutter. Looks like this one right here. Has oil in it. Has a tip on the end here. And when you push down on it, it actually puts a little bit of oil on the cutting wheel. You don't have to push real hard when you cut the glass. So we're going to take it and we're going to start right here. We're just going to push down. We're just going to run it right off the edge there. Then we're going to take our running pliers. We're just going to come in here and we're going to snap that away. Here, we're going to just take this right here. Just cut that away. Got a little piece of straight right here. Cut that away. Now for this intersection here, we're going to go in right against our pattern. Okay, so the inner side, you could do a couple things. One, you could come in here and cut a couple eyelashes in here, or you can take and try your running pliers. You may be able to get this because it's got pretty good edges right here and right here. Or you can do the tapping method. If you're not familiar with that, I'll show you what we're going to do with that. We're going to take an old-fashioned Fletcher glass cutter. It's got a ball in the end of it. Just let you rock it like this. You come right underneath where your score line is. And it drops out. The tapping method sometimes leaves a little bit of an edge there. If you notice that, you want to be really careful because that is super sharp. So we just take our grinder and we'll run on the inside of that real quick, and we'll dress this up to match up with the pattern, and then we'll show you where this fits. All right, we're back. We put this on the grinder, and you can see here we've touched up all the edges of it. When you're doing copper foil, I kind of like to hit all the edges just a little bit to give them a little bit of a tooth on the glass. Also, if you have any sharp edges, it'll help it when you're going on that. Since we're going to need 3 of these pieces anyway, I'm going to make one more while we're on camera here. We'll do that same pattern again, And this time we'll try the running pliers and see if that'll work. It looks like we have enough legs on the piece there that we can probably do that. And when we use the running pliers, we'll just apply a little pressure here and a little bit of pressure right here. But we won't try to bust it out in one piece. We'll just let it fracture the glass, and hopefully I can show you that. The worst thing that happens is we bust it and we start over. So we'll set our piece of glass, our pattern right here. Move our piece of paper out of the way here. I'm going to take and come in here right here. Just take a little turn. Bust that away. Come in here. Pull that away. Come across the top here. Make sure your pattern doesn't move on you. Okay, now we're going to come in here again with our cutter, and we're going to make this circle right here. Get up here where you guys can see it here. Here again, you don't have to push down real hard on this. You just want to hear the little bit of a noise going on it. Okay, now I'm going to take our running pliers. Like I say, we're not going to push down real hard. We're just going to push down enough right here to fracture it. Okay, I heard it crack just a little bit, and that came out just fine. So that inner circle, even though it's a inside curve, is still going to be okay. So we'll go ahead and clean this one up. And then when we come back, I'm going to show you how to copper foil it. And then I'll go off camera and I'll fill the rest of it in. We don't need to watch me cut and fill this all in. But when we come back, then we're going to show you how we're going to solder it up. All right, we're back. We've got our piece of glass all cleaned up now. We've got it all pre-fit. I usually, after I take the pattern off and do the initial first grinding, I always usually set it on my pattern, slide it in, and check my margins right here to see if we're going to be where we want to be. If you need to grind just a little bit more, you can just take a Sharpie pen and just mark real lightly where you want it to grind back. So we're going to get ready to copper foil this, and the foil I'm actually using is actually silver, but it is a copper foil product. It's silver because we're going to leave this project silver. We're not going to Pantene it or anything. If you were going to Pantene it or turn it black, you'd probably use a copper foil with a black back on it. But we're going to just use this silver one that I have in here. Have a little machine over here. It's made by Inland. This works pretty good. I'll show you how to use it. You can wrap these by hand, and it just takes a little bit of effort to learn how to do that. But the machine itself, the nice thing about it is it separates the backing from the foil itself. And the way it works, hopefully I can show you this since we're trying to do this on a camera. The way this works is you set your glass in the slot here, and you just take and you rotate it. And as you rotate it through here, it's putting the foil on the edge of the glass. Comes down around. Pull it out and take and trim it. So then you just take it here and you just push it down. Hopefully you can see this. Push it down all the way around. Then you take your little burnishing tool here. This is the one we used to spread the cane earlier. And we're just going to push these edges down real tight. That's pushing the sticky part of the foil down against the glass. Then after you do that, you just take this and roll that edge over and push it down real nice and tight. This will be the edge that we actually are going to solder, because there'll be one on the piece that butts up against this will have a little edge like this also. This right here didn't want it to do very well, so we'll just tear it off and I'll show you what we're going to do with that. We can just set this back in our little machine here. And I'm going to start over on this back side here again, and we'll just roll it back on here. Get it started straight. Here again, the inner circles are the hardest because the tape doesn't want to go around them. Okay, we'll just bring this off, and then we're going to cut it right here. Now we'll push this back down. So we just added to that. Take your fingernail, you can push it down. Now we got what we want. Just go ahead and burnish this back down. You want to try to make this as smooth as you can, and you want to try to make it as even as you can as far as the amount of foil on each side of the glass, because that'll determine how your solder bead looks. If you've got it real fat on one side and real thin on the other side, you'll get an odd looking solder joint here. So that looks pretty good. We did pretty good here. Looks like what we're looking for. Over here, if you look really close, we have a little piece that is hanging over right here, and you can just take your X-Acto knife right here and just come in here real careful here and just trim that back. And there you go. So that's our piece. So it's all been foiled. It's going to fit in here just like this. Now what I'm going to do right here along this edge right here is, because we're using the H-came right here, you can see that the foil is sticking over it just a little bit here. I'll just take and trim that foil so that it doesn't show beyond this H-came here. And the other one tucks behind the U-came so you don't see it. And then when we solder this, we'll solder right up to here, and then we'll make our solder joint right against our came. So that'll give us a nice looking job. So I'm going to go offline now, and I'm going to cut all the rest of these pieces. When I get all the clear cut, we'll come back on and just take a peek at them real quick. And then we'll come back and go offline again, and I'll cut all of these guys. So these little tiny pieces right here, they'll be a little bit of a challenge, especially if you haven't done a lot of it. But that'll give you an idea how we're going to do this. But this is basically how we're going to do the copper foil part of this. And the reason we're doing the copper foil part is because of all these little pieces. If you put lead on here, you would end up like with this one here, you would end up with just maybe an 1/8 of an inch of the color showing, which we don't want to have happen. So we'll come back on the next video that will have all these filled in, and we'll go from there. All right, we're back. We've got everybody all copper foiled here now. So we got it nice and tight here. So we're going to get ready to solder this. But before we solder it, we want to put piece right down here. I like to do that for a couple of reasons. One, here's our hanger back here. It's coming in here about this far, and I want to be sure that this will help strengthen this corner right here. But we didn't cut this. This is all one piece, so we didn't leave an opening for any cane to go in there. So what we're going to do, I'm going to take a piece of H-cane. Here again, it's this one here. And we're going to take, I marked it where I want to cut it, the length. Going to cut it. And then we're going to take it and we're going to go inside here with our cutters and we're going to cut the heart out of it. So now all we have left is the crown. And with that, take any little pieces that may be sitting up there. Okay, and then we're going to take this and we're going to set it in here on a little bit of an angle. And we're going to push it down here. And we're going to push it right there. Just has a little bit of friction on there. And right there. Okay. Now the soldering on this, we're going to use a 60-40 solder. We're going to use a liquid flux. For the lead part of this, I'm going to take a small stainless steel brush right here. I'm just going to hit these areas here real quick, just to shine them up a little bit. Only because we don't want this to be oxidized. It won't solder well if we do that. Okay, so on our solder, just going to roll off a little portion of it here. Normally going to just, what I normally do is go about 8 to 12 inches a piece and just cut off with my lead shears. And then I'm going to sit down with a stool that I have, work stool. And I'm going to take here and I'm going to take and put a little bit of flux on this project. And then for the copper foil part, I'm just going to come into where the junctions are at. And I'm going to do just a little bit of a spot solder on them so that nobody moves around. And then we'll go ahead and we'll start to solder the whole thing. So if you haven't done copper foil before, it's a situation where it takes quite a bit of practice to get the bead the way you want it. It's one of those things where you just kind of keep working at it until you come down with a technique that works for you. There's quite a few YouTube videos on how to do copper foil or how to solder it. So you might take a look at one of those and before you start your project, or put together something that's just kind of real quick and practice on that. So we've put our flux on here. So now we're just going to put just a little tab of solder right here, and we're just going to hold it right here. And we're just going to put the little bit of solder right onto our lead joints right here. Get it to go here. There we go. Going to get it right here. That takes care of our piece that we put in here. Okay, we'll come down here at the end and we'll solder up the last lead, the 2 lead points down here. And I'm just taking off about a quarter or about 1/8 of an inch off the solder to make that work. So now we're going to come in here and we're just going to put a little dab of solder right here. For some reason the iron is not doing real well. Let's see if we can turn it around here. Here we go. Try it here. Here we go. So these are the areas we're just going to kind of go over real quick. Just going to give them a little spot check right here. This holds everybody in place. And then I'll come back and solder this all in, and then we'll come back and show you what we're going to do. We're going to solder both sides of this. Okay, so that's what we're going to do right here. There's a couple here we didn't get. And when you get ready to solder this, like you're going to lay a bead down here, you just kind of put your iron on an angle and just take and move it along. And you feed it the solder as you move along. And that gives you a nice bead here. And you can kind of play with it a little bit here. All right, so we'll go ahead and solder this up, and then we'll come back and we'll turn it over and we'll do the other side, and then we'll get ready to, we'll build 2 more just like this, and then we'll get ready to put it together. All right, so we got it soldered up. Here's how it came out. So I think it's going to be very nice when we get it all put together. So we still have this side here to do. So when we come back on the next video, we'll get that back side done. And then we're going to make 2 more of these, and then we'll put it all together. So I think it's going to make a real nice looking lantern for us. All right, we're back. We've got both sides soldered now, so it came out nice, and we're going to get ready to finish this panel up. A couple things we need to do on the back side. First of all, you notice we didn't solder these joints right here, 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 or here. This has got a little bit close right here, but it'll be okay. The reason for that is that the next panel that's going to go on here at an angle, if we put a glob of solder right there, when we go to line it up, it's going to push the other one out, and we'll end up with a gap along the edge. We don't want to have that. So a couple of things we need to do here. We need to put a cleat right across this area right here. This is an area where we're going to hold our solar light. We have to sit on something, so the solar light's going to sit in here like that. And then down at the bottom here, we're going to put just a little tab for a shelf. So we're going to put a bottom in this because we're going to stuff this with 120 of the twinkle lights. We don't want them to fall through the area. So in order to put our cleat on here, we're just going to take a regular piece of H-cane, this one right here, and we're going to take it with a pair of medical clamps. This looks like this one here. Somebody gave me this a long time ago. And we're going to set this in here. Try to do this so you can see this. I'm going to set this in here. Right there. And we're just going to come down here with our clamp. And we're going to clamp it. And then we're going to take a little bit of solder right here. Or flux, I mean. And we're going to take our soldering iron. Got a little bit of a dab on there. We'll wipe that off. That looks pretty messy. We'll put a little dab of solder on here. We're going to set this right in here. You don't have to measure this. And we're just going to hold it right here real quick and let it take solder right to the 2 pieces of cane together. Then we're going to take this apart. And I'm going to just take my soldering iron. And I'm going to just run it down with a little bit of solder on it here. Just run it right down between the 2 pieces of cane. And solder that right on there. Okay, so that's going to give us our shelf for our solar panel to sit on. Just wipe it up here a little bit. And because these edges right here are kind of sharp, I usually just take my dikes and I just cut these off on about a 45. So you can see that just going to cut those back a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to come over here, and this is will be on the edge of the bench here. We've got these 2 ends sticking down here, so we need to do something with those. And what we're going to do with those is we're going to take and we're going to trim these back about 1/4 inch. And then we're going to come inside here, and we're going to take and we're going to cut it here. Then we're going to turn it over. We're going to go inside here. We're going to go inside there. We're going to create like a point. And that point now, we're going to bend it over and fill up that slot right there. So it finishes off that piece so it looks like that. So we can either solder that shut, and then we're going to solder it shut, and then we're going to put on some 80 grit sandpaper. And we're going to knock that edge down. So we'll do this corner here also, about 1/4 inch up. Come in, cut it back here. Cut it back there. So we now got a point. We'll set it on our table here. So we got them knocked down. Now we're going to solder these shut, so we kind of need some way to hold this straight up and down. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my drill vise. If you're not familiar with that, it kind of looks like this. I've had this one for a long, long time. So I'm just going to set this in here, and I'm going to tighten this up just a little bit. Not enough to bust our glass, just enough to hold it. And I'm going to put a little bit of flux right here. Then I'm going to take our soldering iron, and I'm just going to take and solder it on the edge there just to fill that in, like that. And we're going to do the same here, to fill that in. Okay, so we got those filled in. Now, this actually doesn't look bad. You could probably go ahead and say, well, that's fine. I'll just leave that like that. We're going to take and sand it down. I'll show you why. Then on this side here, this is where our 45s came together. It's got a little joint here. And then this is where our hanger is. I'm going to solder on both sides of that. Remember our legs running back underneath here. So this will really make this almost bulletproof as far as it ever coming out of there. Better put this on just a little bit of an angle here so I can get this one here. So we're going to take our soldering iron. We're going to go right here in the corner. Just fill that in just a little bit. And down here, let me move this so you can see it here. Right here, I'm just going to take my soldering iron. I'm going to put a little bit of solder on it. I'm just going to hold it right here and just let it flow right around the solder pin and then get away, or cotter pin, and let it get away. Turn it around. Tighten that up just a little bit, not too tight. We're going to do the same thing right here. I'm going to take and put a little bit of solder on here. Just hold it right here. As soon as it flows off the soldering iron, just like that, and we're going to quit right there. Okay, so I'm going to take and put these on the 80 grit sandpaper now. I'm going to knock these edges down, and then we'll come back and we'll finish this up for the final time. All right, we're back. So here again, now we got it all cleaned up. You can see what we did to the corners here. Just took and chamfered them a little bit. Used an 80 grit emery board and just kind of knocked the edges down so they look really nice. So all four corners here are nice and cleaned up. Got our hanger all soldered in here, so that won't be going anywhere. So the last thing we need to do is we need to put our little shelf right here. And what I'm going to do with that, I'm going to just set it right in here up against this board right here. I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to take and measure the middle of this. So it's 6 inches, so we know we need to go to 3 inches right here. So we'll just take and kind of put a little mark right here. And then I made some little shelves. Here's what they're going to look like. These are made out of galvanized tin. It's a real thin material. You find it at the hardware stores, usually back where they have the galvanized venting and stuff for hot water heaters and air conditioning and that type of thing. So what we're going to do with that, we're going to set it right in here, all the way down on the work table, and just kind of eyeball the center of it. But before we solder it in here, we're going to take our marker here, and we're going to mark along the came here. And this is kind of important. Mark along the came here, and then raise it up about 1/8 of an inch above the line that we just made. The reason for that is, if you don't do that, the sharp edge will be sticking down below the came, because the came, if you remember, is rounded. And when it sticks down below it like that, that creates a problem. I'm going to take our piece of form, stick it right at the top of the project, pin it with a couple pins. Take our flex brush, put a little flex on there, or flux. Take your soldering iron, put a little bit of solder on it, just set it right against there, against that in the came, and just let it flow. right like that. Take your cloth, wipe off the edge of it, and that's the panel. So here's what I'm talking about right here on the back side here. See, we got it underneath where the round crown is, so you don't have it sticking down there where somebody could get hooked on it. So we've got our cleat at the top for our shelf to hold our solar light. We've got a shelf right here to hold our bottom in this. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to go off camera and I'm going to make 2 more. They'll be similar to this. They're going to be the same exact pattern, except all of these glass in here will be all different. And then when we come back together, we'll put it in our form and we'll put it all together. So I hope you've been following along. We'll see you in a little while. All right, we're back. We've got all 3 panels done now. So they came out really nice. Happy with them. We got both sides soldered. We've got our little tab on here to put our hold our bottom in. We've got our cleat here to hold our solar light on. So the next step is we're going to put these all 3 together to create our solar lantern. We're going to use this little form that I've made here. It has a 60-degree V shape in it. The panels will sit down in here, and so we're going to move the camera over and get a better shot of how that goes together. So we'll be right back as we get things moved around and get set up. All right, so we move the camera down now. So we're going to take our panels. So this is one of the panels right here. We're going to set it in here on the V shape right here. And then we're going to take our second panel here and we're going to set it right in here on the V. And it forms a V right here in the center here. I'll turn this around so you can see it right here in the V. We have these pushed up against the backstop so they'll be lined up. Then we're going to take our flux. And we're going to put some flux down the middle here. And we're going to take our solder. And we're just going to tack solder this right here. Just to get a solder joint right there. And we'll come down to the middle here. Get another solder joint. I'm going to put a little bit of solder on the soldering iron like that. I'm going to come down here to the end and I'm going to hold these together in case they're moved apart. And I'm going to solder them right on the edge here, on the end here. If you don't do that, what will happen is the solder will go through the slot here, and we don't want that to happen, because then when it's at night, the light will show through on the slot here. So I'm going to put one more little joint right here. And now here at the top here, I'm going to fill this all in solid because this is the only area that actually people can see. So I'm just going to push this forward just a little bit. And I'm going to take and I'm going to put this right here. Just fill that in just like that. Now we're going to take our last panel. I'm going to pull this up. We'll put that in here. And we're going to put our last panel in here. And we're going to set it down here. We're going to make sure that it fits nice and tight down into our groove right here. Okay, so we're going to take a look at that. That's what we want. We're going to take our flux and put a little bit of flux on here. Go down here to the end and put some more. Make sure it's down where you want it. We're going to take our solder and we're going to push it through the inside here, and we're just going to take and we're going to tack solder this right here. Okay. Then we're going to come down to the end of it. Going to put a little more solder on my soldering iron. Going to make sure the edges are close together. Going to give it a little solder joint right here to hold it. Okay. Then I'm going to come into this inside and just give it another little couple spot solders here just to hold it so it'll be nice and tight. I'm going to slide this back down. Here again, I'm going to solder this in solid here at the top. Just like that. Now we're going to take it, we'll turn it one more time, and this will be the third side down. Put it in our form. This is critical. Make sure you got it pushed down good and tight. Here again, put your flux in here. Flux down at the end. I'm going to take and put a little solder on my iron. Going to hold this down tight, and then I'm just going to put it in here and let it flow. Just to solder those two together. Then I'm going to come down again all the way to the bottom. Put a little more solder on my iron. Hold these two together. Solder them in. Come back in here in the center here. Give it a couple more little joints. Okay, we're going to slide this out and we're going to finish that off. I just like to fill that in because that's the only area that people actually see. And that's it. So we have our solar light put together now. You notice here we don't have any bleed through on our solder. That's because we had used our form. It's nice and clean. That's what we want. So we'll go offline. We're going to wash this all up. I'm going to stick a bottom in it. Then we'll put all our lights in it, and then we'll come back, put a chain on it, and we'll be done with the project. So, all right, we're back. We got the bottom put into it. Just a piece of glass that I cut to fit into the bottom. We have our little shelf right here. And our solar light sticking on top here. We've stuffed all 120 lights inside it just at random. Now we're going to put a hanging chain on it so we can hang it up. This chain is going to be made out of a series of split rings. This one here is about 5/8 across on the inside. It has a stainless steel ball bearing swivel on it. And this one here is about a 1/2 inch inside, this split ring here. And then the chain I'm using is a number 16 jack chain. This one particularly one is made by Campbell. It's an open-ended loop, which means that if you look at the loop on it, we'll put it right here, you can just take a pair of long nose pliers and you can open it up like that. So we're going to take the open-end loop and we're just going to take and insert it into our hanger, which is actually our collar pin. We're going to take a pair of long nose pliers and we're just going to close it shut just slightly. We'll come over to the next one. We're going to take and do the same thing. I'm going to set it in here. Take and close it up. And then the last one, right here, I'm going to put it in here. And we're going to close it up. So now we have our hanger on there, so we're basically all done with it. What we're going to do, like we've done on some of the other videos I made, we're going to take this into our laundry room where we have obviously a light switch there we can turn on and off. So we'll fake it out, we'll make it think it's gone dark, and we'll light it up and show you what it looks like. All right, we're in the laundry room. We're ready to turn the light out and have it go dark. So this is what your solar light's going to look like outside when it goes dark. Hope you'll give this project a try and hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.